What is your favorite Robin Williams movie? This one has a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I know they fucked up with giving Hook a 27%, but this one might deserve it. It's day 82 of 365. Today's movie, Old Dogs. This one's directed by Walt Becker and stars John Travolta, Robin Williams, and Seth Green. And honestly, I think this is our definition of a paycheck movie. Even the cinematographer here has worked with the likes of John Woo and Tony Scott and given us some gorgeous movies. This movie is not one of them. And honestly, that's not to fault any of the actors or professionals here. Sometimes you just need a movie to get the checks paid. This was right after one of the largest recessions in American history, and so it kind of makes sense that Disney was just trying to pump something out using the talent that they had on hand with a formula they'd been developing over the last decade. Even the director here has only one movie really of note in his filmography with Van Wilder, and if this movie had been more National Lampoon and less Disney, it probably would have been better for it. The only other movie worth mentioning is he did the third Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, which is not good, but I think a good example of his range, if we want to call it that. This one's kind of an amalgamation of Disney movies you've already seen. Jingle All the Way, The Parent Trap, and even Shaggy Dog come to mind when I think of Disney live-action comedies geared towards families with maybe slightly more adult humor. Honestly, our leads are just kind of too good for the movie. You can kind of tell all the best stuff was probably left on the editing room floor from any improvisation that might have happened on the day. Bernie Mac is here, and he's kind of delegated to one quick scene and then side reactions to a comedy bit that is okay, kind of funny, not the most entertaining thing I've ever seen. But let me not be too harsh on the movie and talk about the three things that I found that I actually really dug about Old Dogs. The first thing that I love so much is Justin Long absolutely selling it in this movie. There is something about a cameo that goes above and beyond the two leads in any movie that will always kind of preoccupy my mind, because I'm always curious where that decision comes from. Did he know that this movie was kind of a paycheck movie for everybody, and so that inspired him to just send it with his performance? Or was he always going to do it when he heard that he was going to be acting with these legends? It could really go either way, and Justin Long has become a legend in his own right as well, especially when you compare it to the performance that Robin Williams and Travolta give respectively, which aren't totally bad by one way or another. Justin Long is just giving it 110% in a way that the other two of them are not. I think he might have a total of 3 minutes of total screen time, if that. I didn't count it out exactly, but he can't have much more than that because he's only really in one full scene for the camping trip. He never pops up again, but he's just here to have the absolute biggest time. He sells it with his physical performance, the way he eats it in the middle of the ultimate Frisbee game. He's really writhing on the ground for that. His introduction, staring down Travolta's character, is absolutely amazing. And he's playing a character 5 times his size. You can just tell that this is a big dog in a little dog's body. And he's embodying that to a degree that is just probably a little too good for this movie, if I'm being honest. The second thing that really works for me in this movie is the back half, and specifically some of the bits that we get to by the time we've set up the premise. I think that You Can't Teach an Old Dog New Tricks is a really good setup for this style of Disney movie. And by the time we get to the halfway point and we've kind of started to understand these guys are older, they're being mistaken for grandpas, their situation is forcing them to learn quickly in ways that they've never been able to before, I like all of that. And now we get a scene where they discuss surviving their pills that they take as old guys. This is really relatable stuff. This is really a fun conversation that seems like a throwaway gag until you realize that they're setting it up for what is going to turn into one of the best gags of the movie. They split up our characters, which I think is a great choice, because up to this point they've been able to rescue each other from some of the more comedic things that are happening to them. Now they're on their own and they're surviving each other's situations. John Travolta gets a Botox smile plastered on his face, which reminds me a lot of Christmas with the Cranks, another Disney comedy live action movie in this vein. And Robin Williams gets the depth perception bit, which reminds me a lot of Flubber, another Disney comedy that he made. This is why these writers were able to sell this movie. They actually wrote a book about how to sell a movie like this after this experience, and it's because they came pre-armed with the stuff that Disney was already trying to do and seeing be successful. That makes the sports marketing angle of this kind of work for me, because they are selling themselves as a company in a movie where the writers are selling themselves as Disney writers. That kind of works on a meta level, even if some of the line-to-line writing isn't that excellent and the direction is kind of flat overall. The payoff to both of these bits end up being one of my favorites in the movie. It gives us a callback to how they managed to set up this deal in the first place, telling these kind of funny stories to their clients. And so that makes the movie a little more circular, a little calling back on itself. This is why I think the 5% is a little not fair, but I also don't think it's much better than like a 25%. I want to say that just because many of these bits work, I don't think the whole movie works. And so I want to give credit where credit is due. There's a lot of clever things happening here. My issues just end up being with the execution most of the time. The other bit that really works for me is the finale, where we get this superhero moment. This is why I mentioned Jingle All the Way. This is exactly the same finale as Jingle All the Way, and it works because this is Robin Williams bringing himself to the kind of emotional peak of the movie. He's kind of executed these big monologues where his heart is, and he's been playing kind of an odd sap for him. He's not doing bits and voices. He's actually playing this kind of straight overall, with John Travolta taking the funnier, edgier lane, which is a weird reversal, but it still kind of works because Williams has the range to do things like that. By the time we get to this finale, you can kind of see why Travolta would have not paid this off as well had you swapped these positions. And I think it ends up being one where maybe the audience was anticipating more of a Robin Williams role for him instead of this straight man Abbott to the Costello. The third thing that I love so much about this movie is something that I didn't see brought up in any other reviews, and something that gets its like briefest time to shine within the movie, but really could have ended up being the entire plot if we're being honest. This is one of the gayer Disney movies that came out at this time. There's a bit dedicated to it, which does kind of work, and you can tell that the joke was always there to be picked and they didn't want to go for the low-hanging fruit. I understand and I appreciate that. However, if they had leaned into it, if this had been a My Two Dads movie in the vein of Birdcage, another Robin Williams classic, I think this movie would have worked that much better. Now, that would have required more out of these actors. It becomes less of a paycheck movie and more of a character study. It becomes way less of a Disney movie, and I don't know if they're ever going to be willing to do something of that nature. But I love that bit especially. It is played not to demean the queer community, but actually to kind of elevate what these kinds of relationships end up being like. When people are friends for 30 years, when they call each other partners, when they essentially are living together at this point in the movie, I love that the movie's willing to call that out and be like, hey, that's kind of gay. And in a good way. Like, these kids are in a supportive environment because even with their mom in jail, they still have two parents. I think that could have been played up even more. And honestly, a gayer Disney movie would have been crazy at this time. I understand I'm asking for a lot here, but I think that would have been awesome. But what do you think? Does this one deserve its 5%? Or are you with me and you think maybe it deserved at least a little bit more? I feel it could have. Our next movie, we're switching away from comedy and we're going into hilariously gory, talking about Ninja Assassin. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow.